Every MiHoYo game is connected is a statement that is both believable and unbelievable depending on where you stand. It's at a point where if you were to say, Hoyo games have no connections to one another whatsoever, you'd get chucked in the face like a idiot. GGZ, Honkai Impact 3rd, Genshin, and Honkai Star Rail are undeniably connected with the amount of proxies, similar and connected concepts, ideas, to outright the exact same character being part of two different game worlds. Games that came out before these don't really have massive extended universes. The 4 games I just mentioned are, in theory, part of what's called the HoYoverse. I'm not here to explain the HoYoverse. Homolabsery made an incredible video on it. Personally, for the longest time, I've thought that HoYoverse definitely connects all of their games in some way. That would mean throwing all the games with well-established universes into the mix beyond just the HoYoverse. And I was immediately hit with a roadblock called Tears of Themis. It would have been easy if this game was totally disconnected from everything, with its very normal futuristic-esque setting and relatively little fantasy elements. But the more I read into it, the more I start to question my sanity. And in case you wonder, Xenosaga Zero is basically in its infancy, being way too young to even have any connections to the other games. But I'm sure at some point someone will look into it, so for the remainder of this video, I'll leave ZZZ out for convenience. So, what's the issue? Well, although Tears of Themis itself appears to have zero connections, there are numerous elements that not only connect it to the Honkai games, but also reveal that this seemingly normal world isn't as normal as one would have it. Let's start where most of you are probably familiar with, Honkai Star Rail, a game that is basically the middleman in this conversation. In Herta's space station, you can find various items that originated in other games, like the Wind Glider and Himiko's Broken Blade. The item of note here is this stack of cards. Interacting with it gives the following message. 40 cards are stacked in a precise arrangement to form a spire. Pull away even a single card and it will collapse into a ruinous heap. Perhaps this is how causality works. We have thousands of choices, but there is only one outcome. And yet, you believe that happenstances are etched in inevitability. One day, you'll find the answer beyond your guaranteed destiny. This stack of cards was presented to the player in Tears of Themis by Vin Richter in the early parts of the game. Keep him in mind, we'll get to him later. This card structure and the story behind it is linked to fate and predetermined destiny, which is quite a familiar theme for basically all these games. The second likely reference is the book series Tales of Winterlands, featuring a character named Artem. The connection sort of in the fan club, where people write fanfics about characters' relationships. You know, romance. It's not super convincing. What is convincing is a very important member of said club, Pela. Her phone case features the 4 male leads from Tears of Themis, and even a rose that references the MC, Rosa. So, this either means that Tears of Themis is an actual romance game, like the one we can play, or it's a romance novel. Maybe. Which means Tears is, so far, part of the HoYoverse, surprisingly. But things will get much more confusing when we get into the game itself. If we assume that Tears is a game within this universe, the logic could fall apart immediately thanks to the existence of Hoyoland. Hoyoland is a theme park in Stella City that features slimes, Fontamare aberrants, Wobaboos, and freaking Homu. So, following my idea just now, we'd have a world, Honkai Star Rail, with a game, Tears of Themis, that happens to have elements from a universe greater than itself, HoYoverse. Confused yet? I sure was. Another point of note is the name, Hoyoland. It could be interpreted as Hoyo, whatever suffix, exists in this game. And again, That means that Hoyo exists in this game, in this universe, referencing a multiverse that was created by HoYoverse. That's way too many intersecting layers. Did that even make sense? No, probably not. Anyways, there were two events taking place recently that have the main characters playtest RPGs, one of which, The Last Dragon Breath, is so Genshin. There's an adventurers guild, elemental slimes, and look, they even have a yapping little floating companion. At least he has a better story than Paimon. However, these are merely entertainment, made up elements that exist in this world. They're just mascots and games that aren't actually real. Well, beside the fact that two AIs were sentient to a degree and broke their game code, but nothing major. They may not be tangible in this world, but other, more suspicious things are. Despite the futuristic setting, there are still things that are basically magic. Like a weird ore that has the ability to capture century-old events like a freaking camera and replay them as holograms. These things are glossed over and just accepted way too quickly, to be honest. That's not even the weirdest thing. Meet Zhang Er, an NPC who everyone thinks is crazy. Why? Because he insists on knowing the secret of the world. The fact that everyone around him are just NPCs in a book or a video game. He himself is also aware that he's an NPC. And get this, in one of the events, he found broken stone slabs with binary code. Well, that just opened another freaking can of worms. Also, remember Vin? Yeah, he's one of the love interests and is extremely sus. Not in personality, but in the fourth wall breaks. In the prologue of the game, which is already ominous enough, Vin speaks to the player as if we're his patient, and he's the one overseeing everything that we witnessed previously. Not only that, in various stories, he also occasionally throws in subtle comments as if he's speaking from an outsider perspective to the conversation. These are often only one-liners and are mostly ignored by the plot. But then why throw them in? I don't understand. And for our latest addition is the card Secret Whisper's third evolution animation. He's not looking at Rosa, he's looking at us, the player. What does this all mean? It's clear that Tears of Themis is connected in some way to the HoYoverse. It can either be a bubble world or a leaf in the imaginary tree, or based on the game-like elements, a game world within maybe Honkai's story? That would explain almost all the things I mentioned. This is further supported by a detail in the Legends of Celestial Romance event. In the game that the main cast plays through, there's a goddess character that refers to the game world as a world within a bottle. And there's also Shangmu, who is clearly just Zhang Er, and he refers to this game world as a bottle within a bottle. And for my personal theory, this one would make a lot more sense for actual players of Tears, is this game is a simulation within its own universe. Basically, the prologue made me believe that Rosa is dying or is dead. And this game, her life that she's experiencing, is a simulation created by the guys, like a teacher in the Legends of Celestial Romance event, who wanted her daughter to be revived within the game. However, it's been 4 years and we still don't have answers on the prologue. But it's not completely impossible, considering the dangerous nature of Rosa's works and all the cases she's been dealing with. It's surely believable that there could have been a horrible incident that Rosa's been involved in that resulted in her death. I mean, this game isn't exactly soft with its writing. Does Tears of Themis actually have connections to the Honkai series? Well, obviously yes. However, its exact placement isn't obvious. It could be within the HoYoverse, but it doesn't adhere to any principles established in these games. It's more likely that it's a standalone universe within the greater HoYoverse. There's the existence of AUs within the game's universe as well. These are not just alternate routes, but actual separate worlds and settings that have their own rules, and the main characters live completely different lives from their main universe's counterpart. Whether these AUs are past life or parallel worlds, nobody knows. Although this does sound similar to parallel worlds in the HoYoverse, these AUs and routes still feel very much enclosed and limited within Tears of Themis' universe. The references to other games are limited to only the main universe and don't extend to the AUs, but the amount of it still irks me. I think the easiest way to approach this is to have it be an isolated universe that just happens to have certain elements similar to the HoYoverse. Because at the end of the day, they are all part of a HoYoverse. Regardless, I think the game's story is worth paying attention to, since there's clearly more than meets the eye. In comparison to the Honkai games, if you really want to dig for Cosmos level lore in this game, it's gonna be quite a hustle under all the death, murder, and defamation cases, not to mention the piles and piles of romance content. I don't think Tears could ever pivot their story or setting to anywhere near the world-shattering, fate-altering plotlines of these other games. But then again, I know close to nothing of the extensive lore of these games, so maybe someone with deeper knowledge could chime in. As it stands, we just have to wait. And from the previews of Chapter 16 on the CN server, we may finally have some lead as to what the prologue actually was. That's all I have for now. I hope you've enjoyed and that you've learned something new. I'll see y'all later. Bye bye!